Let's try to summarize, members.
The second question, or third, how was this excavator procured? If it is hiring, was it an open to whoever has got so that you come to this figure? If it is true that this is what they have been paying per day, and majority of the days it was dead. Lastly, okay. Could it have been the cause of that landslide or not?
Honorable Mwada.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to buttress what was revealed by the Lord Mayor regarding existence or presence of an excavator on ground or any machinery. On 1st November 2023, after petitioning Parliament and KCCA, I went on ground at the landfill with the Deputy Executive Director, KCCA, and the State Minister for Kampala, with him, the Director, I think, for Health. The concerns we got from the community, by then, the landfill was overflowing and had encircled people's homestead, some of these which were affected. On the ground, we noticed, and it was also echoed by the residents, that there is no excavator on ground or any form of machinery. Equally, there was no technical person, be it an engineer. And it was revealed that even the would-be engineer had left a relative who we don't know his or her expertise. Now, hearing that there's an excavator or machinery that was stationed on site with all these billions we are hearing, Chair, I think we are trading, bordering a lie. This money must have been spent, but never reached Kiteezi. I represent that particular area. There was no excavator, and many times this landfill has been overflowing. And this one equally buttressed the other concern. If there were notices that this landfill would escalate.
Yeah, I'm seeking for guidance.
The
Honorable Member is giving very good information, but we want, I know what I'm saying as a lawyer. This is very good information, which we may have to base upon to make our report. And now, he's now giving it as just a member of parliament, but this is critical information. He's a member of parliament of the area and he visited. So we're seeking for guidance. How do we record this?
I thought he was building.
Yeah, what I'm saying, Chair, we need this information politically for our report. Because
remains a submission on record. But no, as a background, Chair.
Do you have any question?
Yes.
Arising from that?
Chair, I'm seeking clarity in terms of this excavator. At least the times I've been on the ground, there were no excavator on the ground. And even at the time of overflowing of the landfill, there was no excavator. I find it discomforting to see the director and KCC asserting that there is an excavator. I also find it prudent for a further inquiry in terms of the expenditure, as it revealed that they are spending much on an excavator, whereas it doesn't exist on ground. Secondly,
no, that's now again not proper. The proper way is either to ask
as a committee member.
No.
For now, I have additional questions.
You will not do both.
Chair,
you see, Honorable Mwada,
you were
a lawyer.
Is alluding to something different.
No. Now listen to your chair. Don't listen to Honorable Sibambi who is not speaking.
But Chair, you attempted to agree with him.
Will you switch off the microphone first? Good. You see, you cannot approbate and reprobate. We want to ensure fair processes. Honorable Mwada, don't quarrel. I am guiding you so that we do the work neatly. Processes are as important as substance. On the one hand, we cannot hear you as a witness. Then on the other, we hear you as a member. Exercise one option. The option of a witness which you have opted for, to me, is wider enough, because you come as a witness, you can even come with other people, bring other witnesses. But when you appear as a witness, then we allow you to cross-examine other witnesses. It will not make our process neat. And two, it will throw us in a position of prejudice. The best is to sit there, give evidence. If they wish, they cross-examine you. You will not exercise the two.
Chair, I want to opt to ask them as a member.
Good. So if you ask them as a member, we will rely on the evidence they give us and disregard all manner of evidence that you have submitted. Please ask the question.
Chair,
Yes, you're giving evidence. You're not a witness. And you have opted to be a member. Don't forget, don't lose sight of that.
Chair, what has been...
Now, which one is your first?
Chair, you have opted to deny me opportunity of elaborating it. And for comfort, I'm opting to go for the second. In terms of the missing bodies, I've read the statement and from KCCA. But Chair, it is our concern as the locals that the people who were working at the landfill at the time of this crisis were many. We want to hear the efforts by KCCA to ensure that even those who have no claim as of now, such bodies are retrieved, especially those who are at the center or at the middle of the landfill. The numbers being counted are those who are reported to be from those within the homestays. That's where covered up by the landfill. But those who had come to pick garbage stuff from the landfill are not reported or talked about. That number is likely to be bigger. We want to look to know the methodology KCCA is using to talk about these fewer numbers. Number three is to do with the cause. The information within the text of KCCA, they are only alluding to the status of the landfill. But there is information that there were foreign contractors on site who the locals narrate had dug inside and at the center of that old heap of the landfill, and there is a probable possibility that there was an explosion resulting from the works of these foreign nationals. We have since learned that they were Koreans. So we want KCCA to reveal to the committee who are these contractors, what were they doing, what was their mandate, and how were they contracted. Because at least information on the ground is...
That what was the framework?
Yeah, because they are only alluding to the status of the landfill, the physical status. But there was also, and we have heard from the Lord Mayor, that this was partly man-made. Part of the concerns we have is that there were foreign nationals doing some work, digging and pressing some pipes in the landfill. The narration from the ground is that there was an explosion which went up and then down, covering houses. We wish to know as a committee who were the contractors on site.
In other words, corroborated by the speed at which.
Exactly. And what were their purpose on ground. And then lastly, Chair, is to do with the narrative of a buffer zone. The text of KCCA is talking about buffer zones at their new sites. But the same people have advertised in the papers, have put a notice in papers, talking about a buffer zone in Kiteezi. This has left our people in anxiety, especially owners of nearby houses. It has not been talked about within their text. We want to understand, what is this, where did it end, but also more importantly, are well aware that our people nearby the landfill are lawful owners of land, some with Vivanja and others with Milo lands. Is there any law COSASE using to announce a buffer zone and take people's land without compensation? Because when they talk about a buffer zone and the meters, they don't talk about the criteria of acquiring the so-called buffer zone, especially on the existing landfill. So our people are now in anxiety. They don't know what is next. But the same COSASE put a notice in the papers and to the public that we are going to remove you. To where? We don't know. Some of these are even in the tent. They don't know their destiny, but in their submission, they have not talked about those affected by the alleged buffer zone for Kiteezi, those in the tent, and the criteria and how to deal with it.
Actually, Honorable Muwada, if you remember when you were at that resettlement, temporary resettlement place, there are those who were saying their houses had been marked. We were together. Where is the compensation mechanism? I think that's what the member is asking. Honorable Kayondo.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, when we talk about or it has reached the capacity, you put the buffer zone at the initiation of a landfill, and it is a law. I think with NEMA it has to be 500 meters.
Yeah, it's standard.
Then in international it has to be 500 meters nationally. But with our NEMA it is 500. Then
And remember, with respect to Kiteezi, one, it is post-event. That's number one. Number two, if you remember, you listen to the testimonies when we were on ground, for this particular catastrophe, houses were attacked even a kilometer away. Why? Because it was an accident of its nature. Now we are talking, the honorable member is raising the issue of a buffer zone, one in light of what has already happened, and the projection is about supposing we have another slide. The slide is not going to be to the same magnitude because the hill has ceased.
The way the office works is that the document came to my office. And,
on 4th July.
Yes. But I was away. I had to travel. I was attending the cabinet retreat with the president in Chankwanzi. As soon as I came back, I acted on it. I wanted the detailed interventions and the costing of them. And that's what Dr. Kelo has said.
What were those interventions, if we could hear them?
No, I don't know them. That is essentially what I was saying. Is there an intervention that we can make? I know that the solid waste management team went ahead and did the non-budgetary interventions. I was asking for the budgetary interventions. But they went ahead and did the non-budgetary, which were to sensitize the community. They
about what?
About the impending catastrophe. They wrote letters, they met the waste speakers, they alerted police, they alerted the LC1s.
Why didn't you close the place?
There was no possibility of closing, was there?
Why? Why was there no possibility of closing?
Chair, when you look
Is it not closed now?
It is closed because there was
so this is the way you wanted it closed?
It was closed. It was closed because there was a slide.
Absolutely.
So to actually be able to close it was not going to prevent a slide. So and if I go back to what that letter is a line of warnings from 2015. Even if we had left in 2016 or 17,
it would have happened
without actually capping, and all the environmental conditions, the rain and whatever is happening, would still have had a similar incidence. That's why it was critical that you cap. Chair,
what is capping in this?
Capping is actually one, you reduce on the slopes, then you flatten, and you more or less mold it into...
So now
took place.
by reducing on the side, what is it, the height.
Yes, you flatten it.
Where would
flatten
you
it.
put the garbage now?
Now, that is where, from 2015, you were saying it has got insufficient capacity. Because to even cap it, we needed to reduce on the amount of rubbish and take it somewhere else. And that involved part of the capping. That is why, in 2014, when we did the first, because we are talking about investors, the first call for investors, they were saying that you cannot be able to proceed to Kiteezi until you have another site. Now, that was when Dundu was bought, because if you're to be able to make anybody to come to Kiteezi in the way it was, you needed to reduce on the west. So just leaving without actually doing anything, it was still going to happen.
But you bought Dundu.
Chair.
You did not
Yes.
do the capping.
And that is why to move to Dundu, you needed funds to move to Dundu.
Chair.
Wait a minute, Honorable Swambi.
Yes, Chair.
Just wait a minute, Honorable Swambi. Dr. Okelo, please explain. You needed money to go to Dundu. Money for what and how much?
Now, two things. If you wanted to replicate a landfill, and when you looked at the cost, the cheapest to be, and this is a lifetime cost.
The cheapest would be?
You need about $30 million to put up a landfill. Now, the way landfill operates, it is more or less digging depressions, one
Yes.
cell, another cell. Now, when I say $30 million, that's for the lifespan of.
Chair, we are having maybe because I'm a teacher and a student of governance and systems. I would like to thank, first of all, for the record. You did your job, but don't take over a cross which does not belong to you. You submitted that letter to the proper authority line, the ED. I expected the ED, instead of writing back because she's not technical, to give us, say, minutes of your waste management committee or presenting this in her sort of cabinet, because she has a cabinet, and then you put all these recommendations that you made, then there are requests for a budget, it goes to the authority. This is now 2014. So now you show processes of ensuring that you are being defeated by the system. It can be actually up to Parliament. So what I expect from you, for purposes of information, your letter, her letter, minutes in those committees, up to this other level. Now, when you're talking about what is happening now, we need this kind of money, you are diverting us from your failure as a system. Oh, you know, there's no way you can fail to get this kind of money. If it's not given to you, we really want to see in documents, not just two letters between you and the ED. Because you are not the authority, then if matters are not coming out, you show us minutes of your cabinet talking about this matter. I think that's what we want to get, Honorable Chair. We are being diverted now to issues of sentiments. Now we need money to go to Dundu. What happened in those years? We really want to see documents.
Honorable Swambi, partly yes. Part of the game has been asking for money in all their budgets. Remember, we had a meeting and called for their budgetary submissions, meant of this and that. Number two, why would you still be talking about a landfill when you're grappling with a landfill? I thought you would be talking about processing that garbage into something else. How can you say, because I don't want to take you back into the investor thing of yours, that conundrum, but over the years, for more than 10 years, you're grappling with an issue of investment where you're not even going to put money. Somebody would have thought that with the trigger of his letter, you would carry out those interventions. One, go do what you called capping. Two, you start dumping in Dundu under normal circumstances, because it was less risky than continuing with Kiteezi. I pick one point that even without continuing with the dumping, the landslide was bound to happen, because already the precipitants had been in place. What KCCA ought to have done going forward from this date or even before would be to see how to reduce and flatten. You did not flatten. And I think that is where the man-made catastrophe comes in. That's number one. How much money did you need for flattening? Does KCC have machines on ground which would do part of this job? Dr. Kello?
I'll start with what we did do in terms of the flattening. Part of the daily operations, we were actually doing that. And as we said, the
element of this and that. Number two, why would you still be talking about a landfill when you're grappling with a landfill? I thought you would be talking about processing that garbage into something else. How can you say, because I don't want to take you back into the investor thing of yours, that conundrum, but over the years, for more than 10 years, you're grappling with an issue of investment where you're not even going to put money. Somebody would have thought that with the trigger of his letter, you would carry out those interventions. One, go do what you called capping. Two, you start dumping in Dundu under normal circumstances because it was less risky than continuing with Kiteezi. I pick one point that even without continuing with the dumping, the landslide was bound to happen because already the precipitants had been in place. What KCCA ought to have done going forward from this date or even before would be to see how to reduce and flatten. You did not flatten. And I think that is where the man-made catastrophe comes in. That's number one. How much money did you need for flattening? Does KCC have machines on ground which would do part of this job? Dr. Kello?
I'll start with what we did do in terms of the flattening. Part of the daily operations, we were actually doing that. And as we said, the last city. And I would even say that maybe part of the daily operations and activities on site in one way kind of kept the landfill safe because it had reached a little bit, because it had reached its capacity many years ago. And what you're talking about flattening, the excavators being on site, having new tipping fronts, trying to have new drainage areas, that was what we were doing on a daily to make sure that that place could
land in the neighborhood for purposes of creating more drainage space, because you have already closed this drainage with your garbage.
We actually acquired land.
I know of the 4 acres.
We actually acquired the 4 acres.
Yes, but it's not about the drainage.
What,
the drainage had been closed from your report.
Yes, and by the time it was being closed was because of the movement, the emergency movements. But on a daily basis, we were trying to make sure that those places were actually, the drainage was kept free. We acquired first, the initial expansion was in, I think, in 2013. Then this was the second expansion that was being done when we acquired land of actually 4 acres. We even went ahead and did designs.
For now, Kiteezi is closed, right?
Kiteezi is closed.
I remember seeing these people going to Kiteezi. Was it January, February? January 9th, saying this one is closed. From their perspective, as executive, they closed it. And those are the people for us we deal with. For you, you did not close.
Chair, you can see Kiteezi was forcefully closed. You can see what we are actually going through now. And even if we had closed it and nobody was dumping, I would still have been here and I've been asked the question that you closed Kiteezi. What else did you do after closing Kiteezi?
Now you're answering 2 questions instead of 1.
And that is why I'm saying that if I'd closed it and left it
Yes.
unmanaged.
But you see, if January for 6-7 months you continue, are you helping the situation or you are exacerbating it?
To me, and again, we are assuming that because of our presence there, we are making things worse, and that may not be the case. If you remember, from October last year, we have had more than heavy rains. And if you look at waste, our waste is 85% organic. Now, with the way the landfill being overused and you having heavy rains, organic waste tends to soak water. And that meant that the weight of the waste became heavier than being able to hold on the slopes that it was. So looking at the weather, looking at the overutilization of the landfill, potentially those two events may have caused the movement and the fish and
The movement came under your watch. You were watching the movements and the risk was increasing day by day.
And that's why I'm saying, if I'd been given the tools to make sure that doesn't work, because in 2021, we actually did a capping study, and we actually had the amount of $7 million. In 2022, we did a livelihood restoration plan and saying, if you are to close, this is what you need to actually restore people's livelihoods. In 2022, we did a social impact assessment. In other words, all the documents to make sure we could be able to run were actually ready.
Okay, I think what Honorable Swamp is
Don't
saying...
carry a cross which is not yours. Just submit those documents, and that is it.
Yes,
Otherwise, you are now carrying on.
submit them.
NEMA condemned the place, correct?
NEMA condemned the place.
Can we have that condemnation by close of business today?
We also have a response to their letter.
And yes, okay, give us NEMA's condemnation and directive. Give us your response by close of business today, right? I think Honorable Swamp was talking about